I do a lot of cultural stuff as well when I travel, but food is I mean, it's a major component when I travel. You know, I research the restaurants, I research coffee shops, I research bakeries because I want to taste what that city is all about.
That was Mayssam Samaha, and we're talking about secrets of a food and travel blogger on episode 47 of the Chopped podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. Thanks for joining me today for the 47th episode of the Chopped podcast. You know, this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. Each week, my goal is to share thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got a touch of a flu this week. Sean and I went and got the flu vaccine. And so the good news is what I have is a very mild case and I'm not contagious, but at least I don't have the fever and the chills that can go along with a serious bout of the flu. And hopefully this means I won't have anything going on the rest of the year, which would be great, but we'll see. It sounds like a good plan. So anyway, let's talk about food blogging. Sound good? Today's guest is Mayssam Samaha of the site Will Travel for Food. I received an email from a listener named George. He's someone who listens to the podcast, and he asked me a really great question. What is a food blogger? Is it just somebody who does recipes, or does it encompass other areas like restaurant reviews or travel bloggers? And I thought this was such a great question and something I really hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about. And so George and I kind of communicated back and forth about some different food and travel bloggers that he really likes. And the next thing you know, I'm talking with Mayssam and asking her I actually ended up asking her that very question myself. What is a food blogger, and does that include what you do? So you'll be intrigued to find her answer. The thing is, I think food blogging is something that has a lot of blurry lines. You know, there are lifestyle and fashion bloggers that include recipes on their site. I've seen some bloggers who do recipes, but they also include fitness or fashion on their sites too. So it just kind of seems like there could be some big umbrella under which would be, you know, fitness, home, fashion, travel, recipes, restaurants. All these things could fit underneath one of these, like a super segment. Am I wrong? Send me an email. Let me know what you think about that. I'm curious. In the meantime, if you're interested in writing more about travel on your site, you are going to love this interview with Mayssam. She shares a lot of great tips about strategies that she uses for her travel posts. For example, one of my favorite tips is how to actually take really great photos in restaurants. That's not easy, and I think she's got a really great tip that I can't wait to try. So why don't we get right to it? Today, I'm giving that intro shout out to George Weber. George, thank you so much for your recommendation and help with making this post come together. And George is thinking about starting a restaurant review blog. So, you know, I can't wait to see that. You could do it, George. Okay, everyone, in honor of George, get out those passports, put on your headphones, turn up the volume, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Mayssam Samaha of the site Will Travel for Food on the show today. Mayssam, welcome to the Chopped podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm really looking forward to talking with you today because you do something that's it's kind of unique and maybe on the outskirts of the food blogging community. And I just think it's something that a lot of people are going to be interested in hearing you talk about, which is basically that you have a food and travel blog. And so, I'm looking forward to talking with you more about that. But before we get into that, I just thought it would be helpful for everybody if they could have a little bit of background about you. So could you talk about why you started your blog?
Well, I started my blog because I was actually traveling. It's so funny because my blog started out as a food blog uniquely, but it did start with me traveling. So I should have known back then. So I started about 5.5 years ago, and I was actually going to a food blogging conference in London, which was organized by some friends of mine. And I was friends with a lot of the foodie community here in Montreal. I'm based in Montreal. So they all insisted that I start something so I can tell them about my food experiences in London. And then I was traveling on to Copenhagen for a week to eat. So, and that's kind of how it started. I was thinking about starting a blog, but I didn't actually, it took a long time. You have to design it and everything. So finally, just as I was leaving, I just started a Tumblr blog, and like I set it up in 15 minutes, and that's how my blog started.
Wow.
I then moved on from Tumblr a year later, but that's how it started. Yes.
Was it called the same thing then?
It was called We'll Travel for Food. Yeah, but with Tumblr, you have a .tumblr or something, but it was called We'll Travel for Food. Yes. Right
Yeah.
from the start.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, have you always been interested in food?
Always, because I'm Lebanese. I come from Lebanon, and I mean the Lebanese people just are obsessed with food.
Oh, you have some
So
great food.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
So and my mother's a great cook and a great baker and a pastry maker. So I grew up with all of that, and I've always loved eating, and so I've always had an interest and I love cooking as well, although I don't have the opportunity to cook as much these days because I'm out very often. So, but yeah, I love cooking. I love baking. So I've always had an interest in food. Yes.
So I can see why there was this interest in sharing those. Were you hoping to share mostly the recipes, that you grew up making?
At the beginning, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure how my blog was going to go. And
Yeah.
yes, I was thinking maybe of sharing some recipes, some of my mom's recipes growing
Yeah.
up. But then it went a completely different way, and I'm very happy with it now. Yes.
So what's your favorite part about blogging so far?
Well, I love sharing. So that's
Mm.
the original idea behind the blog, was to share my finds wherever they may be, whether it was to share a restaurant that I love or that I just discovered, or a city that I'm traveling to, or a recipe. It was about sharing. So, and it's still about sharing. It's still about that. So, yes, that's my
Is
favorite part.
is there anything so much that you don't like so much about it?
Um, The fact, well, no, I really
Oh,
like everything about it. It's a commitment, though.
yeah.
I have to say, it's a lot of work. It's a commitment, but when you love doing it, it doesn't feel like work. But it's just that I love yeah. The only bad thing about it, I guess, and bad is in quotes, is in quotation marks, is that it's a lot of work. But other than
Yes.
that, there's nothing bad about it. I love it.
I guess if you like the work, then that makes it enjoyable, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work, basically. Yes.
Well, one of the main reasons I asked you to join me today, actually, you were suggested by a listener of the podcast who asked this question, and I thought it was an interesting one. He said, is a food and travel blog a food blog? I mean, is that really technically a food blog? And I thought it was a great question, and I was hoping maybe you could answer that for us.
Um, There are all sorts of food blogs out there. I
Yes.
mean, a food blog mainly when you think of a food blog, a lot of people think of a recipe blog,
Yes.
but food blogs could also be restaurant reviews, et cetera, et cetera. So I started out as a food blog mainly. I was doing a lot of restaurant reviews, even if they were not in Montreal. But now I consider the blog more a food and travel blog, because I do have some blog posts that have nothing to do with food, in the sense that if I'm traveling, let's say, to a city, I will write a first blog post about the city in general, and then I will write other articles about the food in that city. So I'll do that sometimes, but is it a food blog? I think it's a food blog. Yes. I don't know.
I like
What do
it.
you think?
I definitely, honestly, I think the lines have been, getting more faint, because I see people who are lifestyle and they do recipes, and so I just
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
I think it's nice to have a wide swath, and not be so picky about who's involved. Really, why define it that way? Why not be
Yeah.
open? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm always thinking about, I mean, when I travel, it's always about the food. Not always about the food, but I mean, I do go to museums sometimes. That's what I tell
Yeah.
people. I said I have to work, I have to walk in between two meals. So yes, I do other stuff.
Walking
I
through
have
a
to work.
museum just helps you burn off
Yes.
calories, right?
Yes, I have to work off the calories. But yes, I do a lot of cultural stuff as well when I travel. But food is a main component. I mean, it's a major component when I travel. You know, I research the restaurants, I research coffee shops, I research bakeries because I want to taste what that city is all about, you
And
know?
see,
So,
as
yeah.
a traveler, I would be very interested in a site like yours because I've done all different kinds of travel, and like I went actually to Buenos Aires for graduate school, and I just felt like going there as a student was so much better than going there as a tourist. And I love the idea of having someone go there before and pick out the great places to go that aren't maybe on the tourist spots.
Yeah, well, as I tell people, I do the research for you, so you don't have
Yes.
to do it. And I spend weeks researching,
Oh my
so I
gosh.
have the best spots. And I even do most of the time. I'll do a Google map, so you can just follow the map, with all
Yeah.
the spots on it. So yeah, I mean, and when I travel, I also when I'm doing my research, I also like visit a lot of local blogs that talk about the restaurants in that particular city because I think it's a great insight into what's good in the
Yes.
city.
So like a
Yeah.
little meetup, you schedule a meetup when you're there?
I no no. What I mean is I visit like the blogger sites,
Oh, okay, I
when I
got
do
you.
my research
Yes.
and yeah. So yeah, I mean it's and everything. I mean I condense everything, I condense everything and I clean it up and I just
Yes.
go to the best spots and I do, like I said, I do all the research. So I
That's
do it
great.
yourself. Yes.
So do you think your traffic, then your audience that comes to your site, are they more localized? In other words, maybe based on the area around the restaurants or around the cities that you're traveling to?
Well, I have a lot of readership from Montreal,
Mm,
obviously, because I do write a lot about Montreal as well, because I'm
yeah.
based here. But I also have, no, it's from all over. I have a lot of American readers. I have my first, I would say like the first good chunk is Canadians and then Americans and then the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about how you choose your restaurants. Is there a process that you go through? I mean, obviously you sound like you just talked about this process that you use to evaluate the city. Is that how you choose your restaurants?
I do, like I said, I do a lot of research. I read a lot. I read magazine articles, magazine that I trust,
Yes.
because not all of them are the same. Because you have to, not that I trust, but that I trust in the sense that if you follow a blogger and you know that blogger will have recommendations that are similar to your own tastes, then
Yes.
then you keep following that blogger and you know that the next time they recommend something, it's going to be good. You're going to like it at least, because
Yes.
it's all very subjective, right?
Oh, yes,
And
totally. Yeah.
so that's sort of how I do my research. So I have certain magazines that I trust and also like I read a lot, and if I see that let's say a certain restaurant keeps coming back and everybody's talking about it, then I know that that's a good place to go to. If I see that a bakery is always on everybody's list as having the best croissants in the city, then I know that that's a good spot to hit. So I sort of do it that way. It takes me literally, like I just came back. Sorry, I just came back from a trip to Peru, and it took me literally weeks to organize that trip. So
Yeah.
it takes me a long time to organize my trips. Yes.
Yeah, I've always been lucky because when I traveled, I've been around, I've somehow connected with some locals that have shown us some great restaurants to choose from. 'Cause that is really challenging. I mean, in
Yes.
other words, I would be of the, your readers would have the benefit of your knowledge, but you're the ones kind of, you're kind of forging that trail and making sure you're picking the best places when you're there.
Exactly. And then I pick them at first. I mean, I make a list and then I'll go visit them and then I'll write about them if I like them.
Yeah.
So, you have it's not only just picking, it's also like tasting and making sure that it's good. Yeah. So,
How do
yes.
you choose, how do you decide what entrees you're going to pick from the menu? Do you pick things that you know you're going to like, or, or do you pick things that are the restaurants really well known for? Is that how you do that?
I try to get I try to get recommendations, of specialties maybe. I'll ask the waiter, what's your
Hmm.
specialty? What should I taste here? I've never been here before. And that's sort of a tip that I use in a lot of places, even when I'm not traveling, what should I taste? What's the absolute must have on your menu? And if it's something that I usually pick that. Yes, that's what I'll have. And my dining companions usually have to pick something else so I can try it.
I have that rule when I go out to eat too. I try not to pick something that somebody else has already ordered.
Exactly,
Because,
exactly,
then there's more to choose from when I'm eating.
exactly. So then you can share.
Exactly. I am but I have to admit, my husband is not one of those people who prefers to share his plate, but I think
Okay.
I'm slowly whittling him down.
But does he let you taste it at least?
Yeah, I think he's okay. I have to kind of nudge him that way. I
As
think he
long
would
as you
rather
can
his
taste
plate be
it,
his own plate. Yes.
Yeah,
But anyway, it's good to have people who like to share.
exactly, exactly.
So, how the restaurants that you pick, do they kind of fit a theme, or do you try to pick restaurants that are different?
I try to pick different restaurants. So I'll do some high-end ones, but I'll do also like holes in the wall that serve,
Yes. Yeah.
barbecued meat and have no chairs to sit on or something like that. So I'll
Yes.
do a range of a whole lot of restaurants because I like all of these places. Like I like high-end restaurants, but I also like, very casual eateries. So I'll try to do a range of everything.
So in a minute, I'm going to ask you what skills are great for being a restaurant review blogger or a travel blogger. But it seems like the thing that's coming to my mind is that you have a wide palette.
I have a wide palate and I always make sure that there's a few coffee shops in there because I love coffee and I like
Mm,
hanging out at coffee shops in foreign cities because you get a good people watching the coffee shop. So,
yes.
just sitting down and sort of living at the rhythm of the city that you're
Yeah.
in, is kind of nice too. Yes.
Oh, that's very nice. So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about how a restaurant review visit differs from a normal restaurant visit. So, what kind of happens like when you walk in the door?
Um, I'm not as, I just have to say, I'm not as formal in my reviews as a critic would be, like for a newspaper
Hmm.
or a serious magazine, which is why I'm a blogger and not a restaurant critic.
Yes.
In the sense that I rate a restaurant and I rate the overall experience, the overall dining experience. Yes, I rate the food. I look at the food. I taste the food.
The
I look at
ambiance, the
the
setting too. Yeah.
ambiance, the
Yeah.
setting, the welcome, the service. All those are important. But in the end, at the end of the night, I sort of look at the overall experience. Was it a fun experience? Was it a delicious experience? Was it,
Yeah.
um, it's sort of, I don't have a rating sheet. Like a lot of critics will have a rating sheet and will, give ratings on different topics when they're reviewing a restaurant. I don't have that because, like I said, it's more
Yes.
casual. It's a blog. It's more casual. So,
Right.
that's sort of, but I do look like when you arrive at a restaurant, you shouldn't be waiting at the door for more than, 2 minutes, like waiting for someone to
Greet
seat
you.
you or to talk to you or to greet you or to,
Yes.
service is important, of course, and the food, the plating, everything is
Yeah.
important. But yeah, so
And what about do you tell them that you're writing a review or that you're a
no,
food blogger?
never,
Okay.
never, never, never,
Because that
never.
might change
Always.
their behavior.
Yes, and I know a few bloggers. Some bloggers will call ahead and say, we're coming and we're reviewing your restaurant. I never do that. I just want to have a normal experience as you would have, as anybody else would have, and
Yeah.
then see how it goes.
Okay, so now I have to ask you an aside question. This is based on my international travel and eating out compared to eating out in the States. And then maybe the same is not true for Canada. I don't know. But in the States, it feels to me like there's a number on your head and they are waiting for you to get out of that table and actually encouraging you to get out of that table so new customers can come. And when I have traveled internationally, I don't feel that at all. I think the customer service internationally is so much better.
It depends where, I would say. Like if you, I went to Hong Kong last year, and in Hong Kong, if you go to
Oh, yeah.
like a noodle shop, you're in and out in 15 minutes.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
I am not kidding. 15
Yes.
minutes. I think once it was like 13 minutes. We were in, seated, ate, paid, and back out on the sidewalk in 13 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I had never eaten so fast in my life.
So I've never been to Hong Kong, but I did go to San Francisco where there was a restaurant that was very similar to that, and they were almost rude, like get going.
Yeah. No, they are rude, but I mean, they are rude within
But
the
it's part.
context of our culture. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes.
But they were actually like the new clients. They ushered them in, and they were standing behind me as I was finishing my plate. I felt
Wow.
so pressured, and it happened in a couple of restaurants in Hong Kong. So
Yes.
there's
Okay.
that.
Yes. There's that.
And then there's like a few places will let you most places will let you linger, and it's not a problem unless the table is reserved for the second service, And then
Oh.
I don't know about the States, but in Montreal they'll let you know. Like if you come in at 6:30 and they have a reservation for 8:30, they'll let you know. They'll tell you, we'll take you, but I'm sorry, but the table has to be,
Ah.
available at 8:30. But yeah, but no places like Hong Kong. I haven't experienced anything like Hong Kong yet.
But maybe that becomes part of the ambiance as well, right?
But
Like,
you have to take it within the context of the culture that you're in. For
Yes.
example, in Peru, they will clear the plates as they're empty. Like if your companions or dining companions finished eating before you, they will clear their plates and leave yours to finish eating, which they would never do. They probably don't do it where you are. They
Yes.
don't do it in Montreal. They don't do it in Europe. They don't do it within the Western standards, if you want, but they will do it in Peru. Like they'll just start clearing the plate as soon as they're ready, which is very disconcerting at first. You think
Yeah.
it's like, was it this restaurant or is it everywhere? And then you realize that it's everywhere. So it's fine,
It's just like their style.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Well, I noticed in Argentina, for example, like they wouldn't even bring the check unless we asked for it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it felt very, at first it was a little, I had to get used to that. But after a while, I really did like that. It was kind of nice. I didn't feel rushed in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to take it, like I said, within
Yes,
the
I like that thought of that. That's another thing that, that you can share with your readers is what to expect, from that kind of service. That's really important.
Yeah, it's very important. Like, even something as simple as ordering coffee, for example, in Rome, when you go to Rome and you're trying to order coffee, or Italy in general, there's a very specific way of doing it. You have to order it usually where the cash is, and then you pay, and then you take your little ticket and you go to the barista and you give them your ticket, and then he makes your coffee for you. It's very specific.
Wow.
And then you drink it at the bar. If you sit down, they'll charge you. If you drink it standing at the bar, it's free. I mean, they don't charge you extra, is what I mean,
Wow.
So it's like very specific things that, are proper to each country. So yes.
That is so great. So that leads me to another question. If you have a restaurant that you've been at and you don't like their food or their service, or there's something that you don't like, do you still write the review, or do you only write positive reviews?
If I didn't like the experience at all, I won't write about it. Like if nothing was redeeming, I won't write about it. But if the experience overall was a good one, but something was off, like the service, or I don't know, the soup was cold, or, something like that, then I will write about it, and I will say those things. But I don't want to write a whole negative review. I don't see the point of that, really.
Right.
Since I'm not a critic, and I don't see the point of writing a whole review and just like being negative about it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I like that. So in other words, if you like the food, or if you like the service, but something else about it isn't right, then you go ahead and put it in a review, but you just make sure that you're I guess, what is it, real about the experience that you had.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's a hard part. I've done a couple of reviews on my site just about, different food products. And I think it is hard because it's easy to get into that mindset of like only saying positive things.
Yeah, it's very easy actually. And most bloggers when they start, I mean, and I feel like that too, is, I started my blog because I wanted to share the my unusual finds, or my the
Yeah.
stuff that I love, whether it's a restaurant
Yes.
or so. I don't really see the point of like sharing something that's completely negative.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fit what I want to do, or my editorial. It's just, it doesn't fit my blog. So I write mostly positive things, but yes, if there's something negative about the experience, I will say it, definitely. Yes.
I think that probably makes the review more trustable too. If, in other words, if everything you write is all negative or everything is all positive, it then, your readers might come to expect that, and maybe it doesn't make you as trustworthy. Whereas if you have reviews that have both, I think it makes it feel more trustworthy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about how you promote your blog posts. Do you have a way, or is it just organic reach that you have?
It's no, it's organic reach. So but I promote it on Facebook, on my social media channels, Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
Instagram. But I don't. But nowhere else. No, it's just all organic.
I didn't know if there was like, for a recipe blogger, there are things like Food Gawker or places
Yeah.
that kind of are conglomerates of all these different posts or blogs. But there's
I
nothing
don't
like
think
that.
I don't think there are, well, I'm not aware of anything like that for the kind of blog that I have. I know that you can probably upload it on Reddit
Yeah.
and sites like that, but I don't do that. I should, but I just don't.
Oh,
Yeah.
Reddit is such a, oh my gosh, I can't even figure that site out.
I can't either. That's the thing. I have to take the time to figure it out.
And my understanding is if you're not willing to put in the time, if you're just putting your own stuff out there, I think they don't really like that. So I don't
Yeah.
have I don't know. I just can't figure it out. Do you write for local press or anything like that?
I write for Tourism Montreal.
Oh,
I'm one of their food bloggers, and they have a great blog. And I write from time to time for different magazines. I wrote for Sever last summer. From time to time I'll have like an article for a different publication, but mostly it's for my blog. Yes.
yes. Is that a way that you interact with the local community, is through the writing for the Montreal press?
I actually, yes, but at the same time, Tourism Montreal sort of got in touch with me because I already had a following in Montreal, and because I
Mm,
already know the food scene in Montreal. So
yes.
I've been writing for them for maybe 3 years now. I like writing for them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like writing for my own blog, but for their own. It's a lot of fun. Yes.
That's great. Have you ever had a restaurant reach out to you and ask for something like a sponsored post?
They do, yes, very often actually.
How do you
Almost
handle
every
those?
almost every week.
Oh,
I always politely say, "Thank you very much for the invite. I will stop by soon." And I never set a date, or I never say, I'm going to come at this date or at this date, because again, I don't want them to know that I'm coming. I'd rather write when nobody knows
yeah.
that I'm there, and just enjoying the experience as a regular person.
So then is it technically a sponsored post at that point? In other words, it's not like they're paying for your
Well,
meal.
well, no. They most of the time they invite me so I can. No, so they invite me to enjoy a meal at their expense, and
I
so
see.
they don't tell me that you have to write about it, but that's the sort of underlying
Ah, yes.
idea.
Yes.
But as a sponsored post, I get sponsored posts. Requests almost every week as well, but from products and from websites that want to promote their site, etc.
I see.
And
Yeah.
I only did, I think, one sponsored post in the 5 years that I've been writing. So
Really?
yeah, I don't do many of those either.
Is it because it just doesn't work with your,
It's just
style?
it's just that my I my blog is just a hobby. I'm not
Yeah.
looking to make any money out of it, and I don't want to be sort of not told what to do, but I don't want to have any obligations. I
Yeah.
want to be able to write whatever I want without having any
Ah,
obligations or any,
yes.
So that's why I don't have any advertisement. I don't have any, like I said, I don't take any sponsor posts. I don't do any of that stuff.
Wow. I mean, that is quite a commitment.
Yeah, it's purely a hobby. It's a very expensive hobby, but it's a hobby. Yes.
Well, as we said at the beginning, it has a lot of rewards because you're helping so many people.
It has a lot of rewards in that sense, and it's also
Yeah.
managed to get me a lot of, like for example, I got nominated for Sever's Best Blog Awards 2 years in a row.
Wow.
So, and that sort of got me a lot of writing gigs, So it's sort of like a portfolio, like a window
Yes.
into, yeah. So in that sense, I've managed to get a few, very few, but a few press trips out of it. So, I
Wow.
managed to get a few things, but the blog itself is purely a hobby.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about photography because I think this is something a lot of people have dealt with as far as getting good photos at a restaurant. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Low light is your worst enemy.
Yes.
And also, everything looks yellow because,
Yes.
lights are yellow at night. So it's really not easy. So, what I try to do is use somebody else's iPhone to sort of light up your plate, but with that, don't use the
Ah,
flashlight. Don't
okay.
use a flashlight. Just use a white screen.
Interesting. That's a great idea.
So just use a white screen, not the flashlight, because or
Too bright.
the too bright, and the food looks horrible. It has no depth. But use a white screen and play with it. Play with the distance from the plate, etc. The angle. It could offset. Sometimes it'll offset the yellow light and will give it a better light. And sometimes it'll look blue, and that's horrible. But you have to try different things. I also have this app. Uh, Cortex Cam, it's called, and
Uh-huh.
it takes good photos in low light, in the sense that the photo will be dark, but it won't have as much grain. So you can then go and do some post production on it and light it up without getting a lot of grain in the photo.
Excellent. Have you ever tried using like a DSLR in a restaurant?
I do, yeah, yeah, yeah. I use a camera, but again, low
You're
light
traveling.
and I mean, if it's low light, also it's really, really bad. So
Yep.
sometimes I'll use a real camera and as opposed to my iPhone. And but again, if there's no light, you're not going to get anything even with a real camera.
And I imagine if you're traveling too, it's not a lot of fun to pack up, the DSLR.
It's not, and you don't want to take it out,
Yeah.
and always ask before you take photos, especially with a big, huge camera. I do. I always
Oh.
ask, and
And why is that? Some restaurants don't like you taking photos of their food?
most restaurants, I've never had anybody except once. A cafe, imagine like a little cafe in South Africa in
Oh
Cape
my
Town
gosh.
told me that I couldn't take pictures. But other than that, even the biggest high-end restaurants in the world don't mind you taking pictures, just as long as you take them with no flash,
Yeah.
because you don't want to bother the other customers. And just like don't climb up on chairs and
Oh, yes, because then, they're immediately looking at liability issues, right?
yeah, no, don't do stuff like that, and don't take too long because then your plate is cold and it's not good. So, I
Yes.
am usually very fast. I do it very discreetly, very quickly, and then I can move on to the eating part, which is the best
That's the
part.
best part. Yes.
Yes.
So, the big question, a lot of people who are thinking about doing this kind of travel reviews comes down to do you make money with your blog?
I don't. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's a hobby.
Yeah.
I don't make money. You could make money out of a blog. I don't know if you can make a good living, but I know a lot of people who make money with sponsored posts, advertising, stuff like that. I chose not to because like I said, I don't want to have any obligations. I don't want to. I have a job. I work, so this is strictly like a hobby, and it probably make my life easier if I did make a lot of money out of
Yes.
it. But I like my job as well. So, I have a good balance. I like
Ah,
writing and
yes.
so it's good. It's good. I like the way things are right
Well,
now.
you're in a best case scenario then if this is a hobby that's expensive, but you love it, but you have a job that helps support it.
Exactly. And I love my job as well. So it's all
Yes.
good.
Yeah, you've got a lot of love there. Okay, so let's talk about, I mean, I do think there are some people who want to get into this kind of blogging or travel blog. And so, what kind of skills do you think a person needs to have for that? Obviously, as we talked, a good white palette is very helpful.
A good white palette, good writing skills. You need to know
Mm,
how to write. I mean, content is king, as they say. Pictures are beautiful, but if it's only pictures, then it's no good unless you want to be a photographer, and
yes.
that's a different thing. But
Yeah.
if you want to be a blogger, you need to know how to write. You need to practice. The more you write, the better you get at it. You need to know how to edit yourself because unfortunately people don't read as much anymore. So you
Right.
need to write less but write better.
Mm.
And
Writing small is hard.
yes, yes, yeah, I have a problem with that,
Yeah.
especially travel posts because travel you can't write
Oh, yes.
500 words only on a on
No,
a,
you could
on a
run.
city or yeah, you need to write more, but um yeah, so you need to know how to write. And if you want to be a travel blogger and you are actually currently working, you need to have a flexible schedule so you can actually travel.
Ah, yes, that's true.
So, yes, so you can actually travel while you're trying to, set things up and maybe do this as a living.
So let's talk about your blog. Do you plan out into the future? Like, do you already know in 2016 the places that you're going to go to?
I don't. I have a wish list, but
Ah,
it's so funny because last year in around the same time, I only had Peru planned for November, but nothing else. But I ended up taking about 10 or 12 trips last year.
wow.
That sort of just happened. I think January and February, I didn't go anywhere. I was just at home. And then slowly but surely, all the others sort of happened. So this year, I have nothing planned yet. But I'm sure I have a lot of things on my wish list. Like I said, a lot of countries on my wish list, and I'm sure something will happen this year.
Can you name one of the city or one location that's on your wish list for 2016?
I'd like to go to Iceland.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to Tanzania.
Ah,
So, a few countries, the Basque
yes.
country of Spain. I don't know if it'll all happen in 2016, but that's my list.
And what about like what is your favorite city to travel to?
My favorite city is the next city I'll travel to, but
I love that. That's a
because
great
if you had,
quote.
yeah, it's
Yes.
like, um,
You love traveling then.
I tend to fall in love with a lot of cities, but Hong Kong is a wonderful city, and New York.
Really?
New York is really close to Montreal.
Montreal,
I
yeah.
go there often. I have family there, so I actually lived in New York before moving to Montreal, so it's kind of like my second home. And I love the eating in New York. I mean, New
Oh,
York, you eat so well,
well, Montreal's got some great places to eat as well.
Montreal has amazing places. It's a
Yes.
really good eating city.
Oh, it's a
Yes.
great location. My favorite story from there is when I got into the cab and the right out of the airport, and the cab driver was he had a very thick French accent because they speak French there, and he said something like, to where am I taking you today? Eh? That A at the end would just crack
Hey,
me up. Yeah.
yes. Yes, yes, yes. Proof that you're in Canada.
Yes, that's how you know. You could actually think, "Ma'am, am I in France? No, no, no. That A gives it away."
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I love that quote though, that your next, your favorite city is the one that you're going to be going to next. So what did you do in January and February last year? You didn't travel. What did you put on your blog during that time?
Oh, I always have backlogs. Oh my God.
Ah,
I could stop traveling today and I'll have enough to write for the next 6 months.
really? That's
Yes,
great.
because I just like now I'm writing about Peru, but I have so many blog posts on Peru that it's going to take me a while to get them all out there, you know?
I see. So each
So
restaurant gets their own review, is that, and that's how you kind of
not
break
each
it?
restaurant. Like right now, I'm writing more about also like the Sacred Valley of Peru. Like if you want to travel into the Sacred Valley, where you should go, what you should visit, where you should eat, where you should stay.
I got you. Okay.
So kind of like a guide of to the Sacred Valley. So I have like 3 posts on the Sacred Valley. I have
Yes.
different things. So it's a lot of work. Like I said, I mean, especially Peru, Lima is a great eating city. I don't know if you've been to Lima,
I,
but it's an
it's on my list.
amazing. There are so many great restaurants in
Ah,
Lima, and I mean those restaurants alone could take up 7 weeks on the blog if I wanted to.
well, let's talk about that just really quickly. I love to talk about the back end process of a blogger. Do you plan your posts out in advance and start working on a kind of like an editorial calendar, or do you kind of this is what I'm going to put this up this week?
I sort of have an idea of what I want to write about. Even as I'm traveling, I'm like, oh, this would be a good angle to write an article. And I'll write it down in my cell phone, or I'll send myself an email, and I have notes everywhere, like article ideas. And like, usually I'm not that prepared that much in advance
Yeah.
as to have an editorial calendar, but I have, right now, right this minute, I have about maybe 4 or 5 blog posts that are waiting to be published. So I'll publish them within the next few weeks, or the next couple of weeks, I should say. And so those I know, and I know, like I said, I have a blog post that I want to write on Italy that I went to last summer, on this like great olive oil producer, that is still not written. I refusing.
Uh,
So I write them down. I'll I'll even like start a blog post, and I'll just write the titles just so I have them as
yes.
drafts,
Yes.
and then I'll go back and fill up the drafts. Yes.
Sometimes I'll do that too, and I'll go ahead and even insert the photos if I have them, and then just start writing around all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I find that sometimes the pictures kind of help inspire me.
Oh, I always look at the pictures for sure, especially if you're writing weeks after you've been to a place, you have to look at the pictures. I take notes, of course, as I'm traveling,
Yeah.
but sometimes, yeah, it just helps us to look at the pictures and say, oh, yeah, there was this and there was
Yes.
that.
So do you
Yeah.
have a favorite social media platform?
I like Instagram a lot. I find that there's good response on Instagram, and it's very visual. But I also like Facebook still.
Yes. You get
A
good
lot of people
response from your readers there?
on Facebook, yes,
Yeah.
especially when I'm traveling. Twitter, I find is a bit. I don't know. I'm not sure about Twitter. I like Twitter, and I use it, and I use it on a regular basis. It's just I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be here for the long run.
It
Yeah.
seems like there's less interaction sometimes on Twitter.
Yes,
It just depends.
exactly.
I go through spurts where it seems like I get a lot of interaction and other times not.
I think since Instagram sort of became more popular, Twitter has become less popular, if that's possible. Twitter is
Yes.
good for a lot of things, for getting news, for getting, no, it's still a good source of information.
Yes,
It's just there's
exactly.
not as much interaction, I
Okay, so
find.
what's coming up next for you? Anything that you can share?
Ah, like I said, I don't have any trips planned yet, but again, I have a lot of blog posts that I also went to Lebanon in December for the holidays, so I'm writing
Yes.
about that, and
Ah,
so quite a few blog posts coming up
I
in the
can't wait
next
just to
few weeks.
see where you're traveling next and to read more about Peru because that's definitely on my list. I would love to go to Peru,
Yes,
so I'd
yes.
love to read about, where you've
It's
gone. Yeah.
It's a beautiful country. It's fascinating. The whole Inca culture is
Oh,
the
yes.
history and all that is absolutely fascinating. I loved it. And like I said, Lima is one of the best eating cities ever. It's so, so good.
That means a lot coming from you because you've traveled a
Yeah.
lot. Okay, a few quick and fun questions here at the end of the interview. So,
Yes.
what's one food item you can't live without?
Ooh, coffee? Does that count, or
I
is
think
that a
that definitely
beverage?
counts. Do you
Oh
have a
yeah. Anybody who's traveled with me knows that they need to find me coffee when I'm traveling.
get her coffee? Any particular kind of coffee you like best? Just black, or how do you drink it?
No, I like my lattes.
Ah,
I like coffee with milk in the morning. I can drink espressos during the rest of the day, but like in the morning I like my coffee with milk.
So you can even drink coffee like right before you go to bed?
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no.
Okay.
No, only when I'm in Italy. Funnily enough, I don't know why. In Italy, I can have 8 espressos and I'll sleep like a baby. If I have one too many here, and I'll be up all night. I don't know why.
My sister can drink coffee all day long. I don't know how she does it, but I don't have that.
No, I don't have that. No.
Yeah. Okay, what's the favorite app on your phone?
My favorite app, I guess Instagram. I also like TripIt for planning a trip. TripIt is a great app. Google Maps, because when I travel, I use Google Maps a lot. That's how I sort of plan my trips. Is I put all all the addresses that I find, I put them on Google Map, and then I use the offline map if I don't have an internet connection wherever I am, and to follow sort of
A route?
to see where I'm going. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then I have all my restaurants on the map. And if I'm in a certain neighborhood, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a sandwich place here that I wanted to try and I'll just go to. I think Google Map is a great tool to plan your trips.
I never even thought about it from that perspective. When we were looking at houses, we used it to help us, like which house we want to look at next. But that's a great idea to, we're in this
Yeah.
area and we want to go to this restaurant too. So you're not
And you can use
backtracking.
different symbols for different things. Like I'll use, I don't know, a blue square for all the pastry shops and a yellow star for all the coffee shops. And, so
Yes.
it's immediate and then you can use different layers and different things. So
You
it's
should write a blog post on that because I would like to see
I
that
did
screenshot.
actually.
Oh, you did? Give me the link and I'll put it in the show notes page.
I'll send it to you.
Yes.
I wrote a blog post on how I plan a trip. So, I'll send it to you.
Perfect. I will put that in the show notes page for everybody then. So do you have any time for TV at all? And if you do, what's your favorite show?
I do. I do have time for TV. I love TV actually.
Good.
Let's see. What's my favorite TV show? I have so many. There are so many. I love Netflix and all their shows.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
really do.
Like House of Cards and things like that?
House of Cards, exactly. So House of Cards, I'm a big fan. Yes.
Ooh, I can't wait for
I
February
can't
now.
wait for the next season. Yes. Yes. So I do. I sit down when I have time. I'll sit down and I'll binge. I'll watch a
Yes.
few episodes of whatever I'm watching. Yeah.
My daughter and I have this theory that Claire is going to be running for president in 2016.
I think so too.
Really?
I don't know.
I would love
She's
it.
either going to be running for president or going to be in the campaign of whoever is running against him.
Oh man, that would be an interesting episode or interesting theory, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh.
I think so because she's really mad. She's angry.
Yes. And she just has this look of power on her face on the last
Yes,
episode.
exactly.
So. Yes. Great.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, how can people find you online?
So willtravelforfood.com is my website, is my blog, and then on there you can find all the links for my social media channels. So on Facebook it's Will Travel for Food, on Twitter and Instagram it's my name, so it'll be much easier if you see it in writing because otherwise I'd
Yes.
have to spell it.
Right, exactly. Well, Mayssam, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a great time.
Thank you, me too.
Thanks to Mayssam Samaha for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you were busy running around and couldn't jot down something important, don't worry. We took the notes for you. Just head on over to choppedcon.com where I put up links for each show, including the stuff we talked about today, and more information about our guests. I hope you're loving the Chopped Podcast. If so, it would mean the world to me if you'd head over to iTunes or Stitcher and give it a review. You can do that right now. Also, you can spread the word about the Chopped Podcast using @ChoppedCon on Twitter or Instagram, or even Facebook. Your shout-outs really mean a lot. You inspire me, so I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.